It was a regular Sunday when everything changed. I had just returned from a weekend trip to Atlanta for my cousin's wedding, which was beautiful. By the way, great ceremony, fantastic reception, and a hangover that hit harder than any of my law school exams. But none of that mattered anymore. I was home, back to my quiet suburban life in Brookstone Heights, ready to relax, and more than ready to enjoy the peace and quiet of my own backyard. I had purchased my 3-bedroom colonial on Elmbridge Drive 2 years ago. It wasn't anything extravagant, but it was perfect for me. A spacious backyard, a small wooded area right behind, and most importantly, a place that felt like my sanctuary. I'd worked my ass off for this. After law school, after all those late nights working my way up in the legal world, this was my reward. I was 32, and I finally had everything I'd worked so hard for. The Uber dropped me off at my front door, and I fumbled with my keys, dragging my suitcase behind me. I was looking forward to dropping everything and collapsing into bed, but then I heard it. The unmistakable sound of loud music, obnoxious pop music blaring through cheap speakers. And that wasn't even the worst part. I stopped in my tracks, my keys still halfway to the lock, and listened. It wasn't just music. There was laughter. A lot of laughter. The clink of glasses. A party? At my house. I abandoned my keys and walked around the side gate to my backyard, where the sound was coming from. The closer I got, the louder it became. And what I saw through the gate made my blood run cold. My backyard had been turned into, well, something straight out of Pinterest, but in all the worst ways. Pink and blue balloons were tied to my patio furniture. A banner reading, "Baby Brennan coming soon," hung between my oak trees. And at least 20 people, maybe more, were milling around, laughing, drinking, acting like they owned the place. I stared, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. And standing at the center of it all, wearing a hot pink maternity dress that looked like it was ready to burst at the seams, was a woman I had never seen before in my life. Late 50s, platinum blonde hair styled in a way that made it look like she was wearing a helmet, pink fuzzy slippers. She was clearly the one running the show, her arms flailing about as she held a red Solo cup in her hand, gesturing wildly. I stood there for what felt like an eternity. My backyard, my property, was being used for a part-yin unauthorized, completely yin vy TED party. I shook my head, blinking a few times, wondering if I was still asleep, still dreaming. But no, it was my backyard. There were my hydrangeas I'd worked so hard to bring back to life after the brutal winter. And there was my grill, my damn grill, which they were using without permission. The rage hit me all at once, like a freight train. I marched up to the gate and yanked it open with such force that it slammed against the fence. All conversation stopped, and 20 pairs of eyes turned to stare at me. I must have looked like a madman, a tall, black man in a wrinkled suit pulling a suitcase behind him, ready to explode. "Excuse me," I said, my voice cutting through the silence, a blend of professional courtesy and barely contained fury. "What the hell is going on in my backyard?" The blonde woman stepped forward, smirking like someone who'd never been told no in her life. "Oh, honey, you must be confused," she said with a condescending tone. "This is HOA common area. We have every right to be here for my baby shower." I blinked, then blinked again. Then I started laughing. The audacity was almost impressive. "No," I said, pulling out my phone. "This is my private property. I have the deed, I have the mortgage payments, and I have the property tax bills too. You have 5 minutes to get everyone out of my yard before I call the police." Brenda's face turned red, the exact shade of her dress. She looked like she was about to explode. "Now you listen here, boy," she snapped. And that's when I felt my jaw tighten. She'd used that word on purpose, and I could feel the weight of it. You can't just come barging in here making demands. This is a respectable neighborhood, and we don't appreciate troublemakers. Troublemakers? I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. "Lady, you're throwing a party in my backyard without permission, using my electricity, my water, and my grill, And I'm the troublemaker? Her laugh was harsh, like nails on a chalkboard. Please, she said. Everyone knows the Hendersons moved out 6 months ago. This house has been empty ever since. The Hendersons had lived a few houses down from me. And yes, they had moved to Florida. But how did she think that meant my house was abandoned? I was standing there, staring at this woman, incredulous. Ma'am, I said, pulling out my driver's license and house keys. I live at 1247 Elmbridge Drive. This is 1247 Elmbridge Drive. This is my house. This is my yard. If you and your baby shower brigade don't vacate in the next 3 minutes, I'll call the cops. But Brenda didn't back down. Instead, she turned to the crowd of people who were watching this exchange like it was a live TV show. See, she said loudly. I told you all these people MOVYing into our neighborhood are causing trouble. First, they complain about our holiday decorations. Then they want to change the HOA rules. And now they're trying to kick us out of common areas. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't just dealing with Brenda. I was dealing with an entire group of people who had somehow said themselves that they were the VY Tims in this situation. The whole community, at least the ones who weren't willing to stand up, were backing her. Common area? I asked, shaking my head in disbelief. This is my private property. Prove it, she challenged, crossing her arms over her chest. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Fine, I said. But first, I'm documenting every face here, every piece of your setup, and every word that comes out of your mouth. When the police arrive, I want them to have a very clear picture of what happened here today. Her expression shifted from smug confidence to something far more dangerous. She stepped closer to me, her eyes narrowing. You put that phone down right now, she hissed. You have no right to record us. Actually, I do. I replied, continuing to film. I have every right to record people trespassing on my property, especially when they refuse to leave after being asked politely. Polite? She screamed. You came in here yelling and making threats. I asked you to leave. I leaned in, my tone deadly calm. That's not a threat. That's a request. The threat comes now. Get off my property in the next 60 seconds, or I'm calling 911. And that's when it happened. Brenda, this audacious, entitled woman, pulled out her own phone and dialed 911. Yes, hello, she said, her voice suddenly sweet and trembling. I need police assistance immediately. There's a man here threatening me and my friends. I'm pregnant, and I'm scared. We were just HOA-ing a peaceful baby shower, and this man showed up, started yelling at us, and taking pictures. I stood there stunned. I couldn't believe it. She was calling the police on a homeowner for asking trespassers to leave his own property. I was done. This wasn't just about my backyard anymore. This was about a group of people who had said themselves that they were entitled to run roughshod over everyone else. And that's when I decided enough was enough. So what do you think? Have you ever had to stand your ground against someone who thought they could do whatever they wanted with no consequences? Drop your thoughts below, share your experiences, and let's keep the conversation going. If you've been through something like this, let's hear your story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you believe in justice. It's time we all stand up for what's right.